It's very wonderful to see mountain and to want to climb it and when you put your life on top of it. But it's wonderful to want to create your own mountain so that you can climb it and put your flag on top of it. But it's also wonderful to know why you are doing that or why you are compelled to climb mountain in the first place. And you might discover that everyone values mountain, but you actually love the sea and perhaps swimming is what you really should be doing. And if your calling is mountain, then by all means to climb mountain. But if you have question about the sea, you must well run this barrier and see what happens. Life means to involve, and if you're not, avoid things called incremental changes that will over time to create a large change that you are produced, and that shouldn't really be a goal or anyone. Like I think every day I get up and I say what am I, what is, and then I move toward. And sometimes honestly, my priorities are how you see my back-to-back episodes of whatever I'm watching. Netflix, I can watch, it's not kind of ritual Sunday that I need, you know, for, to my best self out in the morning, and sometimes, how much of my to-do list can I crank through before lunch. And so I tell myself that is to-do list are the things that are also insignificant compared to the thing that I have already done. I have already survived, I have already accomplished. That is almost laughable that they think they can send there on my to-do list. Like they are actually mocking me. And so if you can get to the point where you can say, well, I have already pushed through something uncomfortable, or I have already done something that I didn't think that I was able to do, didn't have skill to do, didn't have the confidence to even try, but I guess circumstances intervened and I was forced to. I have already done this thing in a different context, maybe different personal context, not career, because they were theater or not in the same world, but I have already it's proof of concepts, isn't it? So what reason do I have to believe that isn't going to work again? So not thinking about it at this entire novel new thing because you do get a free response to new things. Triggers that are been trying to protect us from, things that's maybe dangerous that we don't know anything about and realizing that in fact it's a familiar task not target in the environment and so I think that there's a lot of that lost beach myself looking back at our success and not just embracing them but really recognizing that the new challenges in fact our own ruggeds were already slain. A lot of early accomplishments that I have made were because I didn't realize that there were options and this actually a type of method for teaching out so use play in the violin and I was taught with a circuit method. If you look up to circuit method, you have all these little 4, 5, 6 years old and playing violin is considered that far beyond that you would think somebody of that age should be able to do and is because nobody told them that they shouldn't be able to do and so that was basically my reality. I was told well when you're 11 you're gonna start going to college, so I went to the expectation was about to get good grades. So I did. Every time this was gone put in front of me, I didn't realize you could not accomplish it, so I just did. We would never really know who we would have been if we had made like one different decision, way back there in our childhood. But because of the personal way the brain developed, we are more emotionally responsible to the ambitions that we had early on in life than we are later in life. We all have to live in a society that have been created for us and there's certain expectation that one is a contributing member of the of community that can be accomplished in many different ways. I think if I had a group of young people that it was responsible for, I would try and listen and more and maybe my parents to what each of them want. I certainly wouldn't try mentor of them because you can do that, right? But the situation where they can find people to emulate and to look up to and To ask the right question, or because the worst thing in the world is to have an effective mind or have to waste the question and not to the right people or have what the right person to give an answer. So the your phone brain is still plastic. It's still developing and is more sustainable information in certain ways and use story other I would use story I would use I would use imaginary language and humor, but there's a certain amount of finishing. What happens in the last few years in the early 20s is the full development of the functional context with startup remarkable both for those our ability to think logically and to predict outcomes and also maybe a little bit for us to reject the negative outcome as well. Right, so optimism for the victim to reality between brains are lazy because most of nature is lazy. There should be a justifiable reason for our energy output, because not using resources that are important for our survival. So if our brains are lazy and they follow the process and it is easy for them to follow. If you have continuously trained your brain and through like reframing, that's the most step. The ultimate outcome is the one to think about and decide to work very hard to think about the negative one is unless it's feeling fit in some way it's going to go same good enough because it's a prediction machine. It's like I predict that's roughly not what going to happen. It will be a positive outcome. There may be other factors but energy what I would be spending thinking about. Though other factor doesn't seem like with that necessary waiting for the importance of this decision so good enough. Our progress really don't like to be bored. That get very unhappy if they underestimate and then that can go to solving the problem in many different ways. Not just how can I solve problem sometimes, but how can I ensure that this is not going to be a problem in the long run. Emotions were not useful or is he actively uh distracting in that had to build my life entirely logically. Now that obviously like we're humans, so it is possible we make emotional decisions all the time, but are you afraid of being think that it is something that can be done and always do the right thing, and the right thing is logical, and the thing that as I start to learn about the brain and as I start to learn about myself, I realized I didn't have a lot of ambition and seeing what would happen if I just let them come and must be point my one with the accident and lessons. I went to Honorary and I trained at the Alvin Alley School, which is a very well-known school of modern dance there in Manhattan, and I was gonna be a dancer, but then was sort of cracks in the first side a little bit. I wasn't fulfilled, and when you are a dancer, especially when you are a young dancer, you are treated as if you don't have a mind of your own, and you're simply a body, and that's an artistic director, and the but make sure that don't get too much turkey for the Thanksgiving because then you always fall asleep because try to fun it would be like you to have to back eye the crest or have for women this time they stop worrying about whether are they not fitting in there and whether are they not supposed to be emulating the man or making a point of being female, and then they start just taking the powers, taking their place at the table, and that's asking permission for it, and we have all this chaptizing women. But I think for the masters thing, we are always trying to get women STEM now, and women is coding, so it's, I think I'll be like, I hope this isn't offensive. Like someone in the page that nobody like who is just put enough women into the pipeline, and the fact that it's so leaky, it won't be a problem. Just get enough of track to channel per track musician, there still has to be positive feedback loop. And I think that for the massive, it can be very difficult to be at your best when you're constantly looking over your shoulder and wondering if being you is enough.